Well, I can speak for myself. I think when you're a journalist, you ask a lot of questions and you try to figure out what the truth is. And when you're an investor, you ask a lot of questions and you try to figure out what the truth is. The difference is when you're a journalist, you make no money, as you know. And when you're a venture capitalist or an angel investor, you make all the money. So it's the exact same job. One, you get the glory of being on the masthead, and the other, you get the glory of having a large bank balance. Pick what you want. Yeah, I think diversity in tech was very anemic 10 years ago. And so when I started angel investing, we would see, obviously a lot of white guys starting companies, very few women, and very few minorities. Then we started to see Asian and Indian overrepresented, I guess, in terms of the percentage, in terms of the population, but still Latin and African American and some other groups, women, still underrepresented. What's very interesting is in the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen a massive change in the number of women and a modest change in the number of Latin X, I think is the term people use, and African American founders, but it's changing. In the venture capital world, it's still changing very slowly, but it's changing. So everybody's aware of the issue, everybody's trying to work on the issue, everybody's debating it. I think it's very easy to get on Twitter and be upset about it and to blame people. I looked at the situation, I said there's an opportunity here. If these founders are underrepresented or underappreciated or undervalued, we should just create an opportunity to find more of them. And so what we did was we created something called founder.university. It's a free course. We get about 400 or 500 people apply. We accept 60 founders. And we do 2 a year for underrepresented founders, which we let people self-select for. But typically in our industry, in America, that means African American, Latinx, and women. We will have some white women or some Asian women feel they're underrepresented. That's fine. We let them figure it out for themselves. We'll even see some gay men who are white apply and say, we think we're underrepresented. As far as I'm concerned, if you think you're underrepresented, fine, I'm not going to debate it with you. Other people like to debate and get angry. I don't like to debate and get angry. I just like to try to move the ball forward and create change. And then we do, I think, 2 a year just for female founders. And then we do 2, that's for everybody who wants to apply. In other words, white men, straight white men, cis white men, I think is what they call it. So I try not to be, I try to think about solving problems rather than placing blame or arguing with people. Arguing with people doesn't really result in anything. And blaming people rarely results in change. I think everybody needs to shut up and just create opportunity and do the work. And we're starting to see that now. There's a lot of organizations, whether it's Cheryl with Lean In or Rise Up, female investors, and the change is happening. And it's happening at a very rapid rate. At our events, we had 18% female in the audience. We started tracking it. Or maybe it was even less, maybe 15 to 18%. And now we have about 35% female in the audience. On the stage, we've gotten to 30, 40% female on stage. And a lot of underrepresented groups being represented, but it's hard work, and everybody just needs to do the work. Yes, you have to take all your morals and ethics and check them at the door. No. One of the things about Silicon Valley is if you have high performance, you will rise. It'll be harder for certain groups of people. So I didn't go to MIT, I didn't go to Stanford. I wasn't a developer. I had a knowledge of technology, but I wasn't a developer. So it was a little harder for me. And then there's a whole group of people who it's harder than it is for me to break in. So everybody has some degree of difficulty becoming successful in life. So if I was born in India, in a certain caste, it would have been much harder for me. If I was born a single mom who was Latin in, Mexico, yeah, it'd be harder for me to become a venture capitalist or an investor. So everybody's got their own journey, but I don't think I've had to check anything at the door. In fact, I've become super outspoken. I'm known for being outspoken. I've criticized Facebook for a decade. It hasn't affected my business. People have criticized me for a decade. I think I like a good fight. I like a good debate. And sometimes that wins me a lot of fans, and sometimes I lose fans. But I'm always candid and honest. I think that's most important. And I try to be super helpful to the investors I invest in. And I try to be more helpful to the investors I don't invest in. That's why we do all these free conferences with free tickets, free education, the podcast, the books I write. All that stuff is designed to help people rise up. I want to see people go from being poor to middle class to being upper middle class to being rich to being ultra wealthy. You know, I'd like to see that change. I like capitalism. Well, what the growth stage funds do is they've kind of inserted themselves where IPOs used to happen. So people used to IPO when they were $1 billion, $5 or $10 billion company. If a growth fund can come in and give the company $1 billion or $10 billion, like Masayoshi-san has, all that does is push the IPO out a year or two, and it just makes the company be private for a little longer. And that means the company can work quietly in private to grow their market share and expand around the globe. So the people who, if anybody loses out, it's the public markets, investors who don't get that appreciation that they used to get. And that's why we're seeing more people trying to dip down and invest in these private companies. But more capital is a good thing. You know, once in a while you'll see somebody do something stupid with the capital or lose money on every transaction and try and make up for it with volume, which is never a good idea. But it hasn't been that crazy now. We don't have people trying to sell $100 bills for 20 bucks. Which is what we had in the Web 1.0 day. We have people trying to sell $100 bills for $92, which isn't sustainable, but maybe when they get a lot of customers, they can make the price of a $100 bill $100 again. Yeah. What competition? I'm sorry, is there a Chinese internet company that's dominated America? Is there a Japanese internet company? Hold on a second.
Who's going to win the AI race?
Oh, that's different. That's different. In terms of startups, I don't think there's much of a competition. The American companies have taken the globe. Chinese companies haven't left China. So until a Chinese company is used by 100 million Americans every day, you lost. Sorry, China. We've seen Japan, which maybe now isn't as big of a player. They did in the past have Sony and other companies, or Korea with Samsung, but we haven't seen Naver and Down in Korea come to America. I guess Line did moderately well in America, a couple million people. So I think the American companies have more ambition and better founders. I think China's a much bigger market, so those companies are naturally going to be bigger. But the American companies are still the best. China's coming up. We'll see if they can export their companies. In terms of AI, it's going to be a race, but I think capitalism wins. So until China has a more capitalistic society that has more democracy, it's going to be very hard. But we've made a mistake in America by not letting more people into the country with this Donald Trump experiment that we're currently doing. But that's going to end very soon. I've been through like four major crashes in my life. The stock market crash in the 80s, the dot-com bust, the financial crisis. When the market goes down, it's a great time to invest in companies. When the market's hot, it's a great time to invest in startup companies. You just have to deploy the capital slightly differently. So you just have to understand what market you're in. We're in a hot market right now. It's a little bit frothy. It's not a bubble exactly. So you should be selling shares now. And you should be investing in companies, but doing it wisely. And you should have your companies prepared that, hey, the market could go down, valuations will go down, and you just have to be more capital efficient. So we saw in the last week in America, a lot of the media companies are laying people off. Even in a hot market, that model's not working. But I invested in Uber in the down market, and other people invested in Google and YouTube and Facebook in a down market. So the fortunes are built in a down market, I always say, and collected in the up market. So you build them in a down market, you collect them in the up market. Yeah, Japan was amazing. I love the people of Japan. I love Tokyo as a city. And they asked me to do some press interviews. And they said, like, oh, Cheryl was here, or Ben Horowitz, whoever, like, famous people had been there for their books. And they did 2 interviews or 3 interviews. So they asked me if I would do 6. And I said, well, how many requests do you have? And they said, well, we have, like, 20. And I said, okay, I'll do all of them. So I did all of them. And so I did 9 press interviews, 2 days in a row, 9 or 10. And it was amazing. And so I am over the moon and pinching myself that the book's been translated into Japanese and Chinese, and it's going to be another 6 languages. The reviews have been great, and what's more important, I'm trying to inspire 10,000 rich people to invest in startups, maybe 500,000 each. And these are people who can afford to lose it. If I do that, we could be talking about billions of dollars being invested in startup companies, and that's really my goal. I want to see rich people take this money that's just in bonds or treasuries and not doing anybody any good, and putting it in innovation. Yeah. So that's the whole goal. And we have a website called thesyndicate.com that we're about to launch, but you can go there and sign up now. And we have 2,900 members in that. We had 1,200 members in our syndicate when we left AngelList and started our own kind of AngelList at thesyndicate.com. And so we're hoping to go from 2,900 to 10,000, and we're already the largest syndicate in the world. But we want to have 10,000. I want to have some from Japan, some from Australia, some from Hong Kong, some from China, some from Taiwan, some from Korea. So I want to make it a global phenomenon. Yeah, take 3 photo shoots. This is how I would do it. I take 3 photo shoots. Yeah. All 3 of them would be capable of being the cover. I tell the photographers you're going to get paid $300 for the photo shoot. Yeah. If you become the cover, then I give you another $700 or $1,000 as a bonus. But we're going to do 3 cover shoots, and I wouldn't tell anybody who was running for the cover if they were the cover. I said you'll find out when we mail it, and then I wouldn't tell my editors who the cover was until the last day. So I'd say prepare all the stories, and then make me 3 covers, make me 3 versions of each of the 3 covers. And then I'd sit there and I'd look at them and have 9 of them on the wall, and I'd pick one. So it's very dramatic. And then I wouldn't have to worry about it being bad. And then I explained to them, the cover is to make people, the cover is to sell the magazine, I'm not picking the most important person. I'm picking the person who sells the most magazines, so don't feel bad. Okay, I have to go on stage? Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.